Hey citizens, welcome back to the channel. And today's Man City news video we talked about Chelsea and Manchester City are reportedly nearing a lucrative agreement involving Enzo Maresca. Meanwhile, Ruben Dias has addressed questions for the first time since reports emerged linking him with a potential transfer away from Man City. And Man City are reportedly waiting for greater certainty over Rodri's contract situation before pushing ahead with plans to reshape their midfield. And now citizens, let's break it all down. Manchester City's next era is almost ready to begin, but one final obstacle still needs to be cleared before it officially starts. For the first time in a decade, Man City are preparing for life without Pep Guardiola on the touchline. It's a change that goes far beyond replacing a manager. He shaped the identity of the club, influenced recruitment, and established a style of football that became synonymous with success. Replacing that influence was never going to be simple. That's why the club quickly identified Enzo Maresca as the ideal successor. Maresca understands the Man City ecosystem better than most. He worked within the academy structure, played a key role during the treble-winning campaign, and already knows many of the players and tactical principles that have driven the club's success. The objective isn't to start from scratch, it's to evolve what already exists, however. Despite months of expectation, the official appointment has been delayed by ongoing negotiations. Involving his departure from Chelsea, reports now suggest that a breakthrough is close, with both clubs moving toward a financial agreement that would finally clear the path for Maresca's arrival. In my opinion, this matters because time is becoming increasingly valuable. Pre-season is approaching, transfer plans are accelerating, and major decisions need leadership. The sooner Maresca is officially in place, the sooner he can begin shaping the squad in his image. And there is already plenty on his agenda. Midfield reinforcements remain a major focus, with Elliot Anderson viewed as one of the club's priority targets. Beyond recruitment, the Italian manager must also evaluate existing players and establish how the citizens will adapt tactically. The legal and financial details may not be the most exciting part of football, but they are currently the final piece of the puzzle. Once that agreement is reached, my friend Man City fan, with Enzo Maresca's appointment appearing closer than ever, the big question is simple. Can he successfully lead Manchester City into a new era after Pep Guardiola, or do you think replacing the greatest manager in the club's history will be an even bigger challenge than many expect? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Ruben Dias isn't the type of player who feeds transfer noise, but when Real Madrid enter the conversation, silence suddenly becomes a headline of its own. At Manchester City, this summer already feels like a turning point. Pep Guardiola's era has ended, Bernardo Silva has walked away for a new chapter in Madrid, and what's left is a dressing room being carefully protected rather than simply refreshed. That's where Dias becomes more than just a center-back. He becomes a symbol of continuity. Madrid's interest changes the emotional temperature around Man City's rebuild. This isn't just another rumor about squad depth, it's about the spine of a team that defined Premier League dominance for years. Dias has been the organizer, the voice, the player who turns structure into stability when games become chaotic, and that's exactly why Man City are treating this as a priority issue behind the scenes. Hugo Viana's first summer job isn't just recruitment, it's containment, holding on to leadership figures while simultaneously reshaping midfield and attack is a delicate balance, especially with Enzo Maresca stepping into a completely new era at the Etihad. On the pitch, Dias is already doing his part to shut the noise out. At the World Cup, when asked about Madrid, his response was almost clinical. Portugal first, everything else irrelevant, no hesitation, no emotional spillover, just pure focus. That mentality is part of what made him indispensable in Man City's most dominant seasons. Tactically, losing him would ripple through the entire defensive structure. He's not just a defender in possession-based systems. He's the organizer of the line, the player who allows fullbacks to step inside and midfielders to push higher. With a contract running until 2029, Man City hold control, but control in modern football doesn't always guarantee calm, especially when clubs like Real Madrid start circling their most reliable leaders. For now, Dias is giving the answer Man City fans want to hear, not with words about loyalty, but with complete refusal to be distracted. So citizens, would you consider Ruben Dias untouchable at Manchester City right now? Share your opinion in the comments. Rodri's future at Manchester City is starting to feel less like a routine contract negotiation and more like a pivot point for the entire post-Guardiola project. At 29, coming off a Ballon d'Or winning season and an injury-hit spell that tested both his rhythm and Man City's control in midfield, he now sits at the center of a much bigger question. How do you rebuild a team when your most irreplaceable player is still technically undecided? Man City have already put a new deal on the table. That much is clear. What isn't clear is whether Rodri sees his long-term future in a squad transitioning under Enzo Maresca, or whether this is the moment he considers a final elite move elsewhere. And naturally, Real Madrid hover in the background, not aggressively, not yet, but always present in the conversation whenever a world-class Spanish midfielder approaches a contract crossroads. With Jose Mourinho reshaping the Bernabeu project and already pulling in familiar Premier League figures, the narrative writes itself. Even if the sporting reality hasn't caught up, from the Man City's perspective, this isn't just about retention, it's about structure. Rodri is the tactical anchor, the player who turns possession into control and chaos into shape. Without him, everything shifts, the tempo, the spacing, even how aggressive the fullbacks can be. That's why Hugo Viana is already planning alternatives. The pursuit of Sandro Tonali and Elliot Anderson isn't separate from Rodri's situation, it's directly connected to it. Insurance, yes, but also evolution in case control of the midfield needs to be redistributed. What makes this more delicate is timing. With Rodri still evaluating, Man City are essentially planning two versions of the same midfield rebuild, one with him as the anchor, and one without. Interestingly, Real Madrid's lack of urgency might be the quietest but most influential factor here. No bid, no pressure. Just uncertainty, and uncertainty is what keeps this story alive. For Maresca, clarity is everything. His system depends on structure first, improvisation second, and Rodri is the structure. So right now, Man City aren't really negotiating a contract, they're waiting for a decision that will quietly define how the next era begins. My friend Man City fan, should Manchester City do absolutely everything to secure a new deal for Rodri immediately? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Juma-Boss situation at Manchester City sits in that quiet category of transfer stories that rarely grab headlines, but often tell you more about a club's long-term planning than the big money deals do. Signed from Real Valladolid in 2025, he arrived alongside Kusanov and Vida Reis during Man City's defensive rebuild. But from day one, the message was clear: this wasn't a signing for the present. It was a project, a player meant to be shaped elsewhere before ever stepping into the Etihad spotlight. That development path has already taken him through Lens and Nice, two very different environments that tested different sides of his game. In France, though, the progression wasn't as smooth as Man City would have hoped. Minutes were inconsistent, rhythm was interrupted, and by the end of the loan, questions naturally followed. Now the summer resets everything again. Loan interest is building, and that in itself tells you something important. Clubs still see raw value in his physical profile and upside, even if the final product isn't there yet. For Man City, that's the key tension: patience versus acceleration. What's interesting is that Hugo Viana remains firmly aligned with the original scouting conviction. Internally, Ba is still viewed as a long-term defensive piece rather than a saleable asset. In other words, one difficult season hasn't rewritten the plan, and that matters. Because Man City's defensive structure is entering a period of uncertainty, with John Stones already gone and Ruben Dias attracting attention from Real Madrid. Pathways into the squad may open sooner than expected. Tactically, Ba still fits the modern Man City blueprint: a tall, progressive center-back comfortable stepping into midfield lines and defending in space. But he's not ready for that intensity yet, and everyone at the club seems to know it. So the decision isn't really about talent. It's about timing. Does he need another loan where he's guaranteed minutes? Or does Enzo Maresca see enough to bring him closer to the first-team environment? For now, there's no rush for Man City, and in many ways, that patience might be the clearest sign they still believe the player is worth waiting for. You've been watching the Citizens News fan channel. Hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss any updates about the Man City.